So, there have been a number of individual talking points that you can bring up with the Detroit Red Wings that I do think are relevant and that we can make video commentaries about. I saw an article talking about how the Wings need to stop bargain bin hunting for next season and beyond, how Stevie Y has signed too many older dudes and it's put the Wings in this kind of weird spot where they're one of the oldest teams in the league, but they're still in a rebuild, quote-unquote, and that's not great, so there are a number of things that Yzerman needs to stop if the Wings are to be in a position to get more competitive and progress further in their timeline for a rebuild. Now, bargain bin hunting aside, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Wings shouldn't go out there and get guys who happen to be older. If they're good, if they're elite, if they are top-tier talents, then maybe it's still fine to go out there and grab them, even if they may be in their mid to late 20s or kind of approaching their 30s. It's not that bad of an idea, I'd say, if the players are actually good. Which is why in this video we are diving into two players that have been written about in Red Wings-related articles that suggest that they could be targeted by this Detroit Red Wings club. So, big shout out over to Sam Stockton on the Hockey News, who published this 3 days ago and got a lot of conversation going that I wanted to dive into here in this video. Here are 3 Red Wings trade candidates in search of a summer of substantial upgrades. This article is going to be linked in the description if you want to dive into all of the written content and read more about some of these players. I only wanted to talk about 2 of them. There are 3 that are listed in the piece here, but this is what the article opens up with. When you say make substantial upgrades, it's easier said than done. Steve Yzerman said at his end-of-season press conference in response to a question about the urgency for improvement created by the success of rebuilding divisional rivals in Ottawa and Montreal. Yeah, we're going to try to continue to get better, to try to keep pace with those teams, and not only them. There's no guarantee that Florida and Tampa and Toronto are going anywhere from at the top. It's just imperative that we continue to strive to get better and figure out ways to improve our team and bring better players that make us a better team. So, with the phrase substantial upgrades being plastered all up on the ceiling, let's dive into 2 of the names that Sam Stockton, the writer of this Hockey News article, debates the Wings could go out there and acquire. The first? It's Kyle Connor, currently of the Winnipeg Jets. As a native of Shelby Township and University of Michigan alumnus, Connor is certainly a name familiar to Red Wings fans. As of this writing, he is fresh off a 3-point Game 7 to help spark Winnipeg to come from behind, winning 4-3 in OT over St. Louis, with a second-round date with the Dallas Stars set to get going Wednesday night. Because of Winnipeg's status as a contender, Connor is perhaps the hardest player on this list to try to pry loose. However, even though Connor is an absolute stud of a player that the Jets would definitely want to try to keep around. He almost had 100 points this year, even though he is a player that is signed on till the end of 25-26. So this is actually the second last year of his contract that he's playing right now. Next season will be the last year of the contract before he signs an extension or heads to free agency. But even though there are all these factors that indicate that Connor might not be on the trade block per se right now, it's not inconceivable that he could be moved this summer. Stockton writes, depending on how the rest of their postseason shakes out. The 28-year-old is signed to a deal with a $7.142,857 million cap hit through the end of 25-26 with a 10-team no-trade list. The Jets have always been concerned about free agent retention, so with Connor's deal running down, they may deal him to avoid losing him for free via free agency next summer. Presumably, the no-trade clause wouldn't be a big deal when it comes to bringing Connor back to his home state, but there's always certainly no guarantee Winnipeg would want to make the move. As far as what Detroit could acquire in Connor, he's coming off a season with 97 points and 41 goals. That offense could be a serious boost to the Red Wings' push, though it's worth pointing out he wouldn't have much to offer when it comes to the team's desire to get harder to play against. That's probably true. I don't think Kyle Connor is the embodiment of a difficult to play against player. He's not a big, brute, tough guy that makes your opponent's lives difficult. He makes your opponent's lives difficult because you're down by 2 or 3 goals, not by dishing out 3 or 4 big hits in one shift. Connor doesn't do that, but he is a very versatile scorer with some blistering speed. Just a really smart hockey player who knows how to put the puck in the back of the net. Of course, if this guy becomes available, if the Winnipeg Jets aren't confident they'd be able to re-sign him, because, let's be honest, it's rare to see players actually put their foot down and say, yeah, I want to stay here forever. I feel like it definitely happens a lot more often with other NHL teams that aren't in Winnipeg. But Kyle Connor, if he is an option there, because he is a hometown dude, he is from Michigan, he was a Wolverine, I do like that idea. However, if you wanted to get a little bit more Swede with your Detroit, you could have a conversation about this second name that Sam Stockton writes about on the Hockey News piece. It's Filip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators, who are coming off an unmitigated disaster of a season. Massive free agent spending generating hype the team's results immediately failed to live up to. The 30-year-old Filip Forsberg is signed through 2029-2030 at an $8.5 million cap hit, and he has a full no-movement clause. So, why might Nashville deal him? Well, after this season's disaster, Barry Trotz & Co. will presumably be considering a lot of options heading into the summer. At least one of those likely includes getting younger with some version of a retool. And Detroit could potentially entice the Preds with some talent that is either just broken onto the NHL stage or might be ready to imminently. Phil Forsberg is a star with term left on his deal, so he won't come cheap. And the no move means the Wings would also have to win him over. He scored 31 goals and 76 points a year ago, a step back from the 94 points and 48 goals he had deposited a season prior. If Detroit can arrive at the right price, he's a creative, skilled scorer whose attacking flair comes in service of a power game driving pucks to dangerous areas. It wouldn't be an easy deal to pull off, but it could be one that pays serious dividends for the Red Wings. Now, there is a conversation about Mika Zibanejad as well, but I didn't really want to talk about that in this video. I wanted to focus on those two guys up there, Forsberg and Connor, because when you think about these two players, they just happen to be so good that, of course, any kind of acquisition on Detroit's part would be seen as somewhat of a win. Now, sure, you might have to give a whole bunch of stuff up, but I would doubt that the Red Wings give any huge, significant assets that are part of the core of their team right now. Because, let's face it, if you trade away an Edvinsson, a Sider, a Raymond, a Larkin, and you get a guy like Connor or Forsberg back, you're just kind of going in and out. It's just a roster replacement core piece for a roster replacement core piece. The Red Wings probably have it more incentivized to give up some prospects or to give up some extra pieces around the edges, give supporting assets that can help out Winnipeg or Nashville. Winnipeg, it might be a little bit more difficult to do that because they would more so be interested in trading Connor for something that would be willing to commit to them if they trade Connor in the first place. They would only do that if they think that Connor's not going to come back. Nashville, on the other hand, could be going through an entire other change of direction entirely depending on how they evaluate their team and their season, because they were really disappointing. If they want to get younger, the Wings can help them with that. And it might cost a Filip Forsberg, but if Phil is able to come over to a team like Detroit that's on the outside looking in, that would give him top-line minutes and would allow him to play his game alongside a fellow countryman, Lucas Raymond, then I think that's a pretty reasonable idea too. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Phil Forsberg and Kyle Connor being potential Red Wings targets, and do you think these trade ideas could actually come to fruition? If you're a fan of the Jets or the Preds, what are your thoughts on these trade ideas, and do you think the Red Wings have the necessary assets to make a trade like this go through? What would you want from Detroit that you would feel is fair value for a Connor or a Forsberg? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.